In 1830, in a clothing store near the Boston harbor, David Walker discreetly sewed a pamphlet into the lining of a sailor's coat. Although the pamphlet was thin enough to remain completely hidden, its content was far from insignificant. In fact, during that time, many members of the U.S. government regarded this pamphlet as one of the most perilous documents in American history. Consequently, to ensure that his message reached his intended audience, Walker had to conceal his work within the garments of both willing co-conspirators and unsuspecting sailors, effectively smuggling the pamphlet throughout the country. But what was the nature of this inflammatory document, and who was the man responsible for writing it? David Walker, born free in the late 18th century in Wilmington, North Carolina, was the son of an enslaved father and a freed woman. From a young age, he sought to extend his own freedom to all Black Americans. After relocating to Charleston as a young man, he became deeply involved with the African Methodist Episcopal (AME) Church. During that period, the mainstream movement to end slavery was primarily led by wealthy white men who favored gradual change and avoided confrontations with slaveholders. However, the AME Church embraced a more radical form of abolitionism. In 1822, AME leader Denmark Vesey orchestrated a major insurrection plan aimed at violently liberating Charleston's enslaved community and setting the city ablaze. It remains unclear whether Walker contributed to Vesey's plan, but he was not among the numerous AME members who were arrested and executed for their involvement in the attempted rebellion. In 1825, Walker re-emerged in Boston, where he resumed his fight against slavery. In addition to marrying fellow activist Eliza Butler and opening a clothing store, he played a role in funding America's first Black-owned newspaper. Through his passionate articles and public speeches, he sought to instill pride and camaraderie among those fighting for Black liberation. However, to truly unify free and enslaved Black Americans, Walker understood that he needed to extend his efforts beyond Boston. In 1829, he poured his ideas into the Appeal to the Colored Citizens of the World. This treatise, punctuated with fervent exclamation marks, emphasized the spiritual righteousness of resistance. Walker vividly described the suffering endured by enslaved people to illustrate that the reality for Black Americans often boiled down to kill or be killed. Given these circumstances, Walker staunchly defended the right to militant action. This was just one of the ways in which he deviated from the moderate mainstream abolitionists. In an effort to underscore the significance of Black solidarity, Walker connected American abolitionism with global movements fighting for Black liberation. He called for an international struggle for Black freedom, a precursor to what would later be known as Pan-Africanism. However, he also opposed the popular movement advocating for Black Americans to emigrate to Africa. While the Appeal criticized the hypocrisy of the Founding Fathers, Walker insisted that Black people played an essential role in the country's creation and possessed an undeniable right to American citizenship. Walker anticipated that his incendiary arguments would make him a target for violence. Nevertheless, despite the dangers, he persisted in using sailors to smuggle his work. The Appeal made its way along the coast, into the hands of shopkeepers, church leaders, political organizers, and underground abolitionist networks. Walker's words galvanized militant efforts to overthrow slave owners, and its call to arms struck fear in the hearts of white officials. The police intercepted deliveries of the pamphlet and quarantined Black sailors at southern ports. Inspired by the pamphlet, Louisiana even banned anti-slavery literature, while both North and South Carolina intensified their efforts to suppress Black education and prevent literacy among the enslaved population. Southern officials went so far as to offer a bounty of the modern equivalent of $322,000 for Walker's capture. Despite the urging of his friends to flee, Walker adamantly refused to abandon his cause. Sadly, his courage could not shield him from the deadliest disease of his time. In August 1830, Walker was found dead. While his associates claimed he was the victim of assassination, it is widely believed today that he succumbed to tuberculosis. Following his death, Walker's message continued to resonate. Frederick Douglass credited him as the pioneer of radical abolitionism, and his appeal served as an inspiration for some of the most influential figures in the 20th century liberation movement. From Malcolm X's militant approach to Black resistance to James Cone's writings on Black spirituality, Walker's legacy remains of utmost importance to the history of Black resistance movements and their visions for the future.